Next, we have slight change of pace. So rather than the traditional BSc or the integrated master's degrees, we've got Daniele Acquisto, who's going to talk about the degree apprenticeship. So Danny is an associate scientist at GSK, and he's been at GSK now since 2017. He is on the 4th of 5 years of a degree apprenticeship, so a new type of degree which has been introduced. Really interesting and really good to hear this sort of view and an actual working experience of this type of degree. Importantly, while on his GSK placement, Danny actually was awarded the RSB Apprentice of the Year Award in 2020. And I'm not sure where he finds the time, but as well as doing the GSK placement and the year and working as a full-time research scientist there, he's also studying at the University of Kent for a BSc in Applied Biosciences. So without any further ado, Danny, welcome.
Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for inviting me as well. I really appreciate having the opportunity to talk about my experience and hopefully offer some help and guidance on anyone looking to do the seminar. So yeah, I'll give a little introduction about myself. So yeah, I'm an associate scientist at GlaxoSmithKline. I started there in September 2017 after completing my A-levels that summer. And I originally joined on the level 5 apprenticeship program, which is a 3-year course with the opportunity to top up to level 6 to get my bachelor's, which is what I'm currently doing now. So my role is a research scientist in pharmaceutical research and development, and I work in a great department that spans all and supports lots of areas of drug discovery. More specifically, I work as a protein and antibody expression and purification scientist. And I thought it'd be good to talk about why I chose this career choice. And I think 4 main points that come from this are: I always wanted to work in STEM industry throughout my childhood. I was always a little bit better at science subjects. I was always more interested and intrigued by the learning of those. Following this, I wanted to have a job that might have an impact on other people's lives, which is what I'm able to do through the work I'm doing now. And most importantly, it's something that's interesting, never boring, and important at the same time. And I think one thing that definitely worth mentioning is the ability to gain a degree, study and get work experience at the same time, as well as no student loan, is very important. It's one of the main benefits of an apprenticeship. So next slide, please. So I thought it'd be good to talk about my journey from school to secondary. If anyone is finding themselves in similar positions or wants to see what other opportunities there are of what they think they're already going to do. So my journey from school obviously started in GCSEs when I began to think about what options I wanted to take. And I think at the time I didn't understand as much the importance of what subjects I'm choosing not to do and which ones I want to. So, and it's quite a big decision, especially with lots of students. It's hard to find that information specifically from your school. So from GCSEs, I decided to do A-levels, and I ended up studying biology, chemistry and Italian. And I think the majority of people at the time who took biology and chemistry also chose to do maths as well. Unfortunately, I was never very good at it at all. So I decided to pick Italian, which hopefully kept my options open a little bit. And during my A-levels, there was this big decision about going to university, which course to take. There's thousands of courses and hundreds of providers. And I think this decision is the pressure at the time isn't understandable until you've actually done it. So I applied to university as everyone else was doing the same around me. And then I remembered a talk that I was given when I was in my GCSE years by someone from GSK, who came to talk about the apprenticeships that they offer. And from this, I actually attended a week's work experience at GSK in Stevenage, shadowing a scientist and getting to see their daily life and the work that they do. And the reason I've put a star next to this bullet point is because this was the deciding factor for me. I knew that from this week, this is what I wanted to do. So having applied to university, I also applied for the GSK apprenticeship and continued the application process and was offered a position. And this meant on results day, I had a backup university and apprenticeship backed each other up essentially. So obviously I went through the apprenticeship route, and I started in September as a biology laboratory apprentice towards, and started studying towards my foundation degree at University of Kent. So I did this over the past 3 years, and I finished last July, and was able to obtain a permanent position at GSK. So as an apprentice, you're not always guaranteed a permanent position, but I was very lucky to be able to get one within my department. And then I joined the top-up scheme, so I'm now studying towards my bachelor's degree, part-time as well, at the University of Kent, and hopefully at the end of next year I will have gained a bachelor's in applied bioscience and around 4 or 5 years experience in the industry, which I think is really important. Next slide, please. So yeah, I thought it's also good to talk about challenges along the way. I think this is important. A lot of young people and students understand the challenges, but it's not always spoken about, specifically at certain points. So at secondary school, there's just too many options and decisions, I think, to make at one time at such a young age. You don't always understand the consequence of making choices about what you want to study or what jobs you want to do, and some people don't know at this time. And I think it's also easy for there to be a lack of support and information from the school when you have large schools that maybe 1,000 students in your 1 year. It's hard to tailor everyone's needs, and I think this is a form. At my school, there was a push for students to attend university, and other education and career opportunities have been missed. I think I'd only known about the GSK apprenticeship, having remembered something that was 4 years before, and took it upon my initiative to ask for a work experience and stuff. I think it's difficult at this point. You're studying towards your A levels. You have all your exams. Some people have 9 exams in 1 month, and it's a lot, as well as having to pick a career choice or a university option that you might not really want to do at the time. Another challenge moving into GSK, the jump from school to the real world is massive. I feel like nothing prepares you for this. Even people jumping from finishing university and entering the real world, having your own responsibility and accountability in a professional working environment isn't something that you can prepare for. You have to just learn on the way. Probably took me a couple months at the start to actually learn how to do this and get into a routine. And then since I've been at GSK now, I'm still working, I'm still studying towards my bachelor's. The bachelor's level compared to the foundation is obviously a higher quality of work, and there's a bit more demand. At the same time, I have a full-time permanent position, so having to keep up level with both can be difficult. And then, as always, what are your next steps? This is always such a big thing to think about. Once I finish my apprenticeship, what is the next option? Do you continue with your career in industry? There's lots of further education opportunities, whether this may be a master's at university for a year, or a master's apprenticeship, even a PhD. So I feel like there's always that question is, what can I do next? Or what there's no right or wrong route, essentially. Next slide, please. And then hopefully I can offer some information. If anyone has any questions in our discussion around doing an apprenticeship, how it works, to the benefits and drawbacks from my personal experience. I wanted to also share some places where you can find additional information. So there's a couple companies and organisations I've got on the slide, you may or may not have heard of. The Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education has great information if anyone looking to do an apprenticeship. There's resources around what types of apprenticeships there are and what industries they could go into. And there's also, most importantly, great information for employers looking to get into hiring apprentices, the requirements and approved standards for this. A lot of you may have heard of Prospects, which is great for those even finishing university, maybe not having done or going to do an apprentice, but there's loads of info around career options and advice, as well as continuing to study post-graduation. Cogent Skills is a great website and resource that I've been heavily involved in lately for both apprentices, graduates and employers. It has recruitment tips and resources on developing your skills. And similarly, the Science Industry Assessment Service, which is used in a lot of apprenticeship endpoint assessments, is a part of Cogent Skills. It's definitely worth checking that out for anyone doing or looking to do an apprenticeship. Also, not many people probably think of this, because it's heavily associated with university, but UCAS actually has lots of information for aspiring apprenticeships, what options to go for, and lots of advice, as well as the National Apprenticeship Service is part of Government Education and Skills Funding Agency and works to coordinate apprenticeships offered by the government. And my last 2 points around LinkedIn. So you may not have heard of LinkedIn Learning, which has amazing courses and videos to grow professional skills. So ranging from programming and IT all the way to writing business emails, CV writing, speaking in public. I've used it a lot for lots of professional workplace speaking and meetings and presentation skills. So I definitely recommend this. It does need a subscription, but maybe through school or university or even your employer, they might be able to cover this cost. So I think it's definitely worth an ask. And my main point at the bottom is even if it's the only thing you take away, if you're not already, I would get yourself on LinkedIn. I can't sort of stress this enough how useful it is to network with people in your industry of choice, set up your profile and with your skills and qualifications, and keep up to date with current affairs and updates and progress in industry with lots of different companies. And it's a great way to show your achievements and highlights for others to see. And a main part of LinkedIn is the job search section, which is amazing. And I've known so many people who have found their first or even their next job through the LinkedIn job function. Having to search online for this is so difficult, and having it all in one place, I think, is so great. So yeah, I think that should be everything. I hope we have a good discussion. If anyone has any questions around apprenticeships or experiences at different points along journeys similar to mine in the discussion, I'd happily help out.